edition of the Review of Champions. No grave is deep enough to hold your host, the immortal Lord Deathman, and on today's show, the champions and I are going to review the 5th episode of Marvel's What If. True believers, you must stay tuned for our review of What If Zombies. Speaking of which, if you want to survive the zombie apocalypse, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and sound off in the comments to let us know what you think. Clicking that button is almost as good as a headshot. 3 monsters currently hold sway over the popular zeitgeist: vampires, werewolves, and zombies. Usually mindless and always undead, the zombie is undoubtedly at the top of the current monster pyramid. Marvel's Zombies has always had a cult following in print, but here, for the first time, we get to see them in all of their animated glory. So all right, let's dive right into it. We have a small but powerful panel today, including the Grandmaster.
Hello, everybody.
And we also have Jeff Sloboda joining us from the MCU's Bleeding Edge.
Good to be with you guys again.
Always good to have you here, Jeff. And what we plan to do today is have an intimate discussion about this 5th episode of What If. So that being said, I'm going to waste no time and start off with getting general impressions of this episode, starting with you, Grandmaster. What did you think of the 5th episode of What If?
It was good. It's not my favorite episode, which is strange because it has been building up to better until episode 4. Episode 5 is still great, but it's not better than episode 4, at least not to me. I still loved it though. I'm not a real big fan of zombies. I should add that. That also makes me... maybe that's also a reason why I wasn't too into this episode as I was in the previous ones. Still, there were some great moments. And emotional ones. I mean, that line from Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa when they fly to Wakanda. The quote is about death. Death is not the end. It's as long as people are remembered, they are still with us. Well, to hear Chadwick Boseman say that brought the feels. I loved the Spider-Man Hope dynamic, and overall, still a great episode.
Yeah, it was apropos to sort of hear the King of Wakanda talk about life after the great beyond, or in the great beyond, so to speak. But Jeff, what were your initial impressions of the episode?
Well, it was definitely, for me, it was the highlight of the show so far, and I do expect that to be altered by I'm sure, by something we'll see in the next couple of weeks, because like Grandmaster said, I feel like the momentum of the show is kind of gaining steam as we're going. You know what I mean? I feel like maybe they're saving the best for last for us. That's kind of like what we're going to see what happens, but I kind of like, for some reason I have a feeling that that's something that maybe Marvel would do. But I thought it was great. I mean, I felt very more connected and more intimate with the episode than I did with like episode 4, for instance, I guess just because of the Avengers angle, you know, like, and of course, like Grandmaster said, the Spider-Man angle. I mean, this rendition of like the Avengers basically was like really interesting. I loved the combination of characters that they ended up with, you know, Winter Soldier being a part of it, the Hulk popping up and dropping through the Sanctum Sanctorum and having nobody be there. But like Doctor Strange cape is still around, you know, like still like kicking it. It was really interesting. I wasn't sure what was going on at first. When the Dark Order showed up on Earth, just like in Infinity War, and the Hulk pops out of the Sanctum Sanctorum, and then you see Iron Man and Doctor Strange and Wong and everything. I wasn't sure what was going on, and when I came to the realization that the concept of zombies they did for this was one where all of the dead Avengers that became zombies still had their abilities, like that was just great. I loved that aspect of the show. I thought that was like the coolest thing about it for me, was that that they could still fight, and like Cap was still like good at hand to hand, even though he was a zombie, and Hawkeye was shooting the bow and arrow and all that. It was really interesting.
It is. Marvel has always had a different take on zombies. The zombie superhero tends to be able to keep their skill set. And zombies have been in the comic books for a long time. There are always these little specials or these side issues where they sort of just want to explore the idea of what some of these heroes would be like in a setting where it was post-apocalyptic and a lot of them were undead. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode myself, and I'm really vibing on a lot of what you're saying there. I do feel like they were climbing the ladders, Jeff. Like this is a ladder where they're continuing to go up. This is the peak. I don't know what the next episode is going to bring. I heard that that's the Iron Man, Black Panther episode. Killmonger's going to be in that one. So that ought to be interesting. But, that being said, I want to take it back to the Grandmaster just for a second to sort of get your likes and dislikes from this episode.
Well, the only dislike I have is that I'm not so into zombies. So that made me less interested in this episode. That's just me. That's just my personal taste.
Do you prefer werewolves or vampires?
No, I'm not really a big fan
a horror.
of that. I mean,
okay.
My wife used to watch the series called The Originals with werewolves, vampires and witches and stuff like that. She was completely into that. I just don't get it. But that's just me. When I talk about what I saw, I agree with Jeff. I actually like the team they brought up with Happy and Kurt actually in it. And that was fun. Like I say, I like the dynamic between Hope and Peter Parker in this episode. It was I wouldn't say a romance that was interesting, but especially a close friendship that was interesting. I absolutely loved that the Vision chose his heart over mankind when it came to Wanda, and zombie Wanda was fantastic, and of course that ending with our purple villain showing up with an infinity gauntlet as a zombie, that just blew my mind. But there were lots of likes on this episode, absolutely. It's just I'm not too much into zombies. That's my only dislike.
That makes sense. Zombies are kind of an acquired taste, so I'm going to give you a pass there. But there's no doubting that their ascendancy in cinema and on television, probably since as far back as Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake, we've been seeing the zombies sort of dominate both the small and big screen. I don't think Marvel was riding the coattails of the current zombie trend. I think their zombie sort of predates what's been going on. Because Robert Kirkman, who's big on the Walking Dead show, the architect of that show, the creator, wrote for Marvel before he started writing The Walking Dead. He wrote a lot of the early Marvel Zombies episodes, which is kind of, it's kind of all tying together, fandom kind of crossing over in this way. I kind of like the way that brings Walking Dead fans together and Marvel fans together in this particular episode. Jeff, I'd sure like to hear what you liked and or disliked about this particular episode of What If.
Well, I like that connection that you just mentioned with the Walking Dead fandom and the Marvel fandom maybe being able to connect based off of this, and like the Robert Kirkman aspects and everything and whatnot. Like, I think that's really cool. The Walking Dead was, let's be honest here, Walking Dead was like the zeitgeist there for a minute, like culturally, like it was like the top of the food chain thing. Like,
yeah, dominating.
Yes, it was a phenomenon. Like, I mean, I was definitely ensnared by it. I'll tell you right now, I was a loyal Walking Dead fan up until, I guess, probably the end of season 5, I think it was, when the what's his name, the Korean kid got killed by Negan. I just couldn't take it at that point. When that happened, I couldn't handle his death. I didn't want to see it. I knew it was going to happen, so I never watched that episode, and that was it. I stopped watching the Walking Dead right at that point, and I've kind of like gotten back into it now, but I've got to chronologically kind of go back in time and rewatch a lot of it. But anyways, I do like zombies. So for me, this was right up my alley. I loved what the direction of this. I didn't realize that Robert Kirkman wrote the original Marvel zombie stuff.
He did.
It's really cool that he did. And you're right. That does predate The Walking Dead and everything, which is really cool. You know, when you think about it, that Marvel kind of was already ahead of the game with that. You know, I enjoyed shows like True Blood on HBO because I do like the. I've mentioned on Sakar that I'm really looking forward to the Midnight Suns aspect of Marvel with the MCU when we get to that point. I'm really looking forward to Blade, the introduction of Ghost Rider, seeing Moon Knight hopefully become a part of that whole kind of paradigm of the MCU, the Monsterverse or whatever you want to call it.
Right, getting into the horrorverse.
That's what I want to see. That's what I'm really, really looking forward to. I want to see how they're going to do Johnny Blaze, how they're going to do Ghost Rider. I'm assuming that Doctor Strange is going to have a major part in that whole realm, which I'm looking forward to seeing that connection. But as far as episode 5 goes, my likes, everything about it were pretty much likes. I don't have any negatives that I can think of, any dislikes at all really with the episode. I thought it was great. It was fun. The energy was great. Like I said before, I felt more like emotional heartstrings with this, like more actual loss.
Yeah.
For the first time, you know, that like I usually would have like from the live action shows. I felt more of that for this because I guess there was, you know, a lot, you know, a sense of death and ultimate, you know, an ultimate type, you know, fashion of the episode where you had people dying and you had Hope sacrificing herself and everything and whatnot, you know, it was very heroic. I liked her addition to the team. It kind of made me wonder, like, you know, I wonder what it would have been like if they would have added her to the Avengers right off the bat, you know, like in an alternate kind of like redo of the Avengers. What if they had, you know, gone, because I mean, she's an original Avenger from like the comics.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I mean, it really, that's what it made me think of. And then I also really enjoyed the Spider-Man aspect of his contribution to the episode, just because he's so jovial and like energetic and like, you know, we've only gotten so many chances in the MCU to really see him unpacked, Tom Holland as Spider-Man and like, you know, and do Spider-Man stuff. So just to see him with the Avengers in some form and fashion was great. Like, I really enjoyed that aspect. I loved the Peter Parker aspect of the episode. Black Panther popping up was great. Seeing Chadwick Boseman again, totally rewarding, totally emotional. You know, I mean, you know, I guess we get one more episode with him before the end. And it's really, really great that they were able to bring him back like that and have him do something, you know, kind of like set the record, I guess, for him, you know, in terms of him passing. Right. But yeah, overall, I mean, I thought everything about it. Sharon Carter was a big like for me. I love Sharon Carter. So anytime they can stick Sharon Carter in there, I'm happy.
Yeah, and that was Emily Van Camp returning to do voiceover work. I like that moment. In fact, I love the moment where Hope gets to go giant. And that's something we've never seen in live action, the Wasp sort of turning into giant woman. And unfortunately, it doesn't work out for her in terms of her being transformed into a zombie. But it was really a thrilling moment in the episode. All of the stuff that happened when they released Undead Wanda was also spectacular. The fight sequences, the action, the animation. I mean, the only downside I had about the episode, guys, is I feel, and let me know what you think, I feel like some of the likenesses on the animated characters aren't quite matching the actors. I don't know if that's on purpose, but how did you guys feel about the animation overall, Grandmaster?
I think the animation is great, and I actually don't need a one-to-one copy of the live-action actors. I actually like that they look a little bit different, because what I'm truly hoping for, that at a certain moment we will get like a Marvel animated cinematic universe. So you get a brand new stories, a complete setup like they did with the MCU, but then in animation. With movies or shows and stuff like that, interconnect them, crossovers, etc. That's my big hope we will once get. And well, you can't do that if you let the animated characters look a lot like live action actors, because then it will get too expensive. And yeah, so I hope that's my hope. So I was okay with it.
Okay. Well, hopefully Kevin can negotiate some discounts on those likenesses, when it comes to animation moving forward. Those guys are already making the big bucks, but I hear what you're saying. It was just that they were so close to some of the way the actors looked as to be distracting that they weren't exact. But it's a small knit. It's a very, very small knit. And it was just one or two characters that I felt like, especially the Russian guy, David Dasmalchian's character. I think his character's name is Kurt. I was like, he looks really close to the way he did in Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, but not quite exact. But
T'Challa is the one that looks the most like Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah, they really nailed the Chadwick Boseman likeness in terms of animation. Anytime we've seen him in the episodes of What If. But Jeff, am I making a federal case out of a small claims court situation in terms of the animation?
No, I mean, I totally understand where Grandmaster is coming from in terms of why they would do what they've been doing, and as far as what you're talking about, which is an accurate depiction that some of the characters don't look like they do in real life. It just hasn't fazed me yet, really. I'll be honest with you. I really didn't even think anything of it. I just set it aside right off the bat and was like, okay, well,
Yeah. Yeah, and the action and story more than makes up for any small imperfections in the animation. And the animation itself, by and large, especially with the action, is just fantastic. It's phenomenal.
Well, I'm not a comic book reader, but isn't it so that in the comic books, the appearance of characters also change a little bit over time?
They change radically. So you will get different artists doing different interpretations of the characters for sure. But I guess
it's not like the characters in the comic books look like the people who are in live action movies or TV shows.
Well, sometimes they try to shift the appearance of a character in the comic book to look a little bit more like their actor counterpart, or at least their style. But you're right. As a comic book reader, we are totally used to the idea of having characters be generalized or interpreted by the artist in a certain style and not look the same way twice from series to series. In any event, guys, I think the conversation here has been really stimulating about this episode, and I think we have a winner overall, although Grandmaster's feeling like we're not quite climbing the ladders of the heights of previous episodes, which is understandable. Jeff and I, as I think diehard, zombie fans, recognizing the greatness of the undead kings as they roam the earth, got a little bit more value out of this episode. Not a lot, but a little bit more value than Grandmaster. But guys,
I still rated a 7.
Okay, I was just coming around to actual episode ratings, Grandmaster. So you're saying 7
jumping the gun
out of 10?
7 out of 10, yeah. So I think it's on par with Captain Carter and the one with T'Challa Star-Lord. It's not like it's a total misfire. Absolutely not. It's just that I'm not so attracted to zombies.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. But Jeff, can I get your rating on this undead episode?
I'm going to give it a 9.5. I'm going to save my 10 because we've still got 4 episodes to go. So, I'm going to save my 10. I'm going to go with a 9.5. And I'll tell you, just like I mentioned on the MCU's Bleeding Edge when we reviewed this on Wednesday, I felt like, for me at least, look, the eye of the beholder, right? Like, it's, Grandmaster doesn't really like zombies that much. I do, Lord Deathman, you like zombies. It's all, it's all it's a very individual thing when it comes to, like, being a Marvel fan and an MCU fan. And some of us are going to like certain stuff while others are not going to. I thought it was great. And I felt like this version of What If is the template for me, as far as, like, if they were going to do a live action What If, like a film or something like that, and like a B film in a one-off kind of direction, where they said, you know what, we're going to do a What If movie, like a feature film, a live action with, and bring all the Avengers in and everything and whatnot. This is like the direction I would think they would go. I think they would use this model.
Yeah.
This would work if they did this in live action in a 2 hour and a half movie, and had it zombified and everything. It would make a lot of money and it would be a blockbuster.
I think it would too. And I think it would be dynamic enough and very different from what they're doing in live action already that this would be a perfect live action adaptation. A one-off, you can go to it, not worry too much about continuity, and you already know a little bit of the story since it dovetails with Infinity War / Endgame. But yeah, really loved what they did with the characters. So glad to hear a lot of the original actors come back to reprise their roles as voice roles. So that makes all the difference to me, even though they totally fooled me with Peter Parker and getting Hudson to come in and do that work. Still great work. I'm sure Tom was busy doing something else for Spider-Man 3 or 4 or whatever it is. He's probably doing a flip somewhere. But
being
guys,
recorded by the guy from the boss on Shang-Chi. But that is another thing.
Indeed. So, but guys, we've got our impressions on this one. I think this was a solid episode. No real complaints here. No dislikes. Lot of positive energy in the discussion here, which I'm really grateful to you guys for. And I want to solicit any closing remarks with any little details or nuggets that you discovered in the episode that you want to share with the audience at home.
I would just say that I like what Grandmaster said earlier about the potential for an animated MCU universe of some kind, a Marvel animated universe. I would love that.
Yeah,
Any kind of
me
MCU,
too.
any more more MCU content of any kind, I'll take. I don't care what it is, if it's animated, whatever.
What I meant is actually outside of the live action MCU, have a animated Marvel universe stand right next to it, made by Marvel Studios. I think that would be awesome and would get a lot of fans invested.
Yeah, I think that
and they have the perfect platform for it with Disney Plus.
Oh yeah, it doesn't have to mirror the MCU at all. It can go in its own direction and work perfectly fine. I mean, they
can actually start with Eternals 7,000 years ago and work their way all the way chronologically to 2024.
Yeah, I think animation, in my opinion, might be better used if they used it to sort of tell some of the stories, to do some interpolation, to kind of tell a story that's happening in between two stories that you might be seeing in live action, kind of use it as a short or something in that format, to help fill in some gaps in an animated platform.
Didn't they
totally
do Prelude comics? Well, can make...
they do Prelude comics. They do all sorts of in-between fillers. But if those comics were actually animated shows, I think that would be incredible.
I've been collecting those comics recently. That whole series that they released to go with the MCU, Lord Deathman, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Those where all the characters do look like their actual actor selves. I've been actually starting to collect those. I've got a couple of them, and I like them. They're a perfect little accompaniment to go with the MCU. You know, of course, they mirror the MCU story. You know, but they give you more information.
Yeah. Jeff, I know you're not her biggest fans, but the Prelude comic books for Captain Marvel were actually pretty good.
I heard that.
Get your hands on them. Yeah,
I heard that.
We will soften Jeff up to Brie Larson.
I haven't actually read that much Captain Marvel comic books, so you never know. I could start reading the Captain Marvel comics, and I could find them to be amazing. Look, like I've mentioned before, I'm honestly, as much as I like to BS about Brie Larson and Captain Marvel, I still am very optimistic about the Marvels and everything, and I really do genuinely want to see that movie come off well. I want it to be done well and work. I want to be happy with it.
Yeah, and Jeff, that's what separates true believers from trolls.
That's right. That's right.
So, yeah, having that optimism in the fandom, you know, being excited about what comes next. It's okay to not be in sync with every single release that comes out. It's just if you're down on everything that's going to come down the line without actually seeing it, that's really not an attitude that I can abide personally. So,
if you have never seen it, then how can you judge?
Exactly.
I think that this series is going to segue really nice and be a nice break with the live action shows to where when we do get Hawkeye is just going to come right off kicking ass right off the gate. Like,
yeah. I think Hawkeye is going to be a sleeper hit, but that's a topic for another show, Jeff. We should really plan to do that.
We talked about that on the MCU Phase 4 preview that we did, preview show that we did. I talked about the fact that I think that Hawkeye is going to be a sleeper potentially.
Be assured that I will be hosting and producing the Hawkeye review series for Sakar Podcast of Champions. So no worries. And I expect you all to be on.
Oh, most definitely.
Yep, you can count on me. I think that brings our show to a close today. So I just want to turn to the listeners, viewers at home, and ask you to be sure to check us out on Twitter and Facebook and all of your other favorite social media platforms. We'd also like you to consider joining the discussion on the forum at sakar.freeforums.net. I'd like to say thanks to the panel for you guys joining me today, and of course, all of the listeners out there who are listening to the show. I'd like you to remember to be safe out there. And of course, we will see you in the next one.